Kim here along with...
Hello, Maggie.
Yes, Maggie's here, and we are here for another episode of Multiplex Loves Movies. Sorry for being a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties, but we are here and we are ready to go. I am not alone today. Like I said, I've got Maggie with me, but we've also got another guest for the panel, the one and only Mr. VHS himself. Blockbuster, half of Blockbuster Video. Nazario, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for inviting me. Actually excited about talking about this great director. And I actually rewatched a few of his films for this, so that was a good time.
Yes, and the films that we are Nazario's talking about is none other than Guillermo Del Toro. He's is that a oh my God! Hang on, put that nice up. That is amazing. Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
I have so we'll be sprinkling them around.
Jeez. The reason we're doing Guillermo Del Toro is because his film, well, he didn't direct it, but he has a film coming out in theaters this weekend called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. He produced it. This is a good excuse for us to talk about his films. Not all of them. We won't go full-on in-depth into all of his films, but we picked three. Kind of me and Nazario actually picked three, and then I kind of forced Maggie against her will to jump in, watch one of them that she had never seen. So it'll be interesting to get her take on that one. But as always, if you're new to the show, welcome. What we do is we want the show to be friends sitting around on the couch enjoying conversation about film. So that's what we're doing. We're here to talk about film because we all love it. We're just sitting around busting each other and having a good time. That's all it is. So be in the live chat. Join the conversation. If you have something to say, if you have a question for anybody here about a certain film, put it in there. We'll get your comment up on screen and we'll talk about it for sure. So please jump into the comments, into the live chat for sure. So all that being said, why don't we each start with just like our overall thoughts about Del Toro? And I will begin. I had not seen many of his films until right before Shape of Water came out. I really went deep and watched everything. All I had seen up to that point were the Hellboy movies and Pan's Labyrinth. So I went pretty deep. Oh, actually, I saw Pacific Rim too. So I guess I saw about half of his films. But those are the ones I saw. I hadn't really seen any of his like early stuff, which is actually probably the better part of his career, which we'll get into. But that's kind of my history with him. I all of a sudden discovered him, loved every second. Well, not every second. There's a couple that I really don't like. But Nazario, what about you? What's your relationship with Del Toro like?
Mine is a little easier because I'm from Latin America and we have more access to like directors from Latin America and Spain a lot actually. And Del Toro, even though he's Mexican, he actually started making a lot of films set in Spain at the beginning. So I actually believed he was a Spaniard for like 15 years of my life until I was like, wait, he's a Mexican? He keeps making movies about the Spain Civil War. But, yeah, it's actually very interesting. And I actually discovered him, ironically, through one of the American movies he made, because the first one I ever watched was Mimic. And that was his second feature film, I think, right after he made Kronos, which I actually saw second. And I was like, damn, this guy is good. I actually love this style of like gothic horror, but very tactile. Not much CGI used, which I really appreciate because he really goes for the practical effects. Absolutely. And I was a fan after that.
Yeah. Jonathan Peck already in the chat making a great point, which I didn't realize when we were going to start talking about this, but congrats to Del Toro. He got his stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame today, which I did see on Facebook later, but yeah, he got his stars. He took a bunch of images with the Mexican flag wrapped around him, so that was really cool. So yeah, that's a good. The timing worked out really well on this that we're doing this today. But Maggie, why don't we go to you? What are your thoughts on Del Toro?
Yeah, I don't really know what the first one is that I watched. Whatever you show me first. I don't know if it was Pacific Rim or Crimson Peak, but it was one of those two films. And then I saw Shape of Water, and it grew on me eventually. I saw Pan's Labyrinth before Shape of Water, and that was definitely the highlight. I really, really enjoyed that movie. It's probably arguably his best film. And then yesterday I watched Chronos. Today I watched Devil's Backbone and Mimic, so I am ready to go.
So you've seen all, or no, you haven't seen Blade?
No, I haven't seen Blade 2.
Okay.
But I do, like Nazaria said, I really do enjoy the, like, tactical, like, gothic horror style. Like, Devil's Backbone has, like, it's like a horror movie, but it's not. And Chronos is, like, the same sort of way. And even Crimson Peak sort of is on that edge. And I really, that's, like, a nice little place in that genre where I can, like, watch the movie and not be scared and be like, wow, there's a message behind it. So I really enjoy his films.
Yeah, so we picked 3 of his movies. I'm going to be honest. I think arguably these are his best 3 films that we're going to talk about. They're 3 that I don't know what else to say. They're his best films, in my opinion. We're going to go in chronological order, starting with The Devil's Backbone, which was released in 2001. I've only seen this movie once. I saw it, probably like, when did Shape of Water come out? 2017. So pretty close to right before Shape of Water came out. I watched it along with other stuff. So I watched Chronos, Mimic, Devil's Backbone, and I feel like those would be the 3. I think those were the 3.
Pan's Labyrinth together.
I had already seen Pan's, but those were the 3 that I like watched right in a row. And this movie floored me. I just remember thinking that it's not a very long movie. It's only like an hour and 45 minutes, but he does so much. It's pushing it. It's under 2 hours, and he does so much with just that short amount of time that, like, other directors, I feel like if they tried to tackle this story in this movie, it would just be like this 3-hour like crazy bonanza. But he just like is so masterful with the way that he tells these like ghost stories, and like you guys were getting at, it's like a ghost story, but in the end, the ghosts and everything aren't like the scariest parts of the movies. Which is something that like he does a really good job of like talking about like humanity and just as well as bringing in these supernatural things. So again, I've only seen it once. I know both of you watched it very recently, like within the last couple of days. So I think you guys will be able to talk a lot more at it. But Paul Oyama is there saying, a friend of mine saw Del Toro at opening night of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's awesome. Apparently he loved it. That's cool. And that Devil's Backbone, aka his best movie. I would probably agree. It's not my favorite of his, but it's close. So Nazario, tell us about Devil's Backbone.
I have a particular history with this movie because I really, really love it. It's even when I try to make my Del Toro list, which is always a little tricky. I think my brain gives me one thing. My brain tells me 2 other movies are technically and more complete, are a better film. I have it at number 3 in my personal list of Del Toro films. Yet, when I made my top 100, the only one that made it was The Devil's Backbone. I saw this movie when I was in college, and I took my now wife to see it. And she's very, she doesn't really like horror movies, and yet she could get into this because this movie, like you said, it's a ghost story, but it's not really about the ghosts. And like it happens in a lot of Del Toro films, the real monster is not the one who looks like a monster.
Yeah,
it's going to be a common thread actually in these movies that we're going to discuss today. That the good-looking guy, that the guy who should be usually is the hero in other films, is the guy who is actually the monster. And slowly, because of things that happen in the movies, they get deformed into a way that they look like more what they really are, which is actually a very interesting way to take it. And yes, this is a little story about a little school in the middle of Spain that is at the end of the Civil War, and it's pretty much abandoned, and people are trying to keep the kids alive because those are the kids that nobody nobody is going to be calling for, because they're the sons of the soldiers that are actually the rebels against the regime. And it's a very touching little story. It's very striking. It has subtle messages of fear. For example, they plant the bomb that doesn't explode in the middle of the yard, and it's like the ticking bomb that nobody really knows. Something can go off at any time, and it's really a striking visual thing. And the way he handles the ghost, little Santi, it's actually pretty masterful. And I really love the effects that he uses in this one, like, because the subtle things, how things float around the kid, which actually has to do with a plot reveal of why he's a ghost like this, and it's really beautiful. I also have a toy for this movie.
That's the G's.
Little Santi with the bomb in the middle of the school.
Wait, that's awesome. That is really cool. Man, I don't have anything like that. You're obviously clearly more of the fan. But Maggie, you saw the film today.
Yes, I did.
Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Nazario said. I really liked the voiceover in the beginning and at the end, especially at the end when are we spoilers?
You can do it in Spanish. You can do it in Spanish.
Anyway, there's somebody who is giving the narration, and the shot of him at the end giving that. Well, he's not giving it, but it's over a shot of him, and it really brings the story together. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And like you said, it really is. I mean, I think the tag on Letterboxd is like the real ghosts aren't.
The living will always be more dangerous than the dead.
Yeah. So, and I had no idea what this movie was about at all. And so when all of a sudden the one guy really stepped up to become the villain, I was like, well, this is happening. And the effects were really great. All of the blood looked a lot better in this one than in Chronos. I think it was that it looked. No, that was a different movie we were watching. Anyway, the effects were really good, especially with some of the stuff that happens later where a bunch of people are injured. And I don't know, I really believed it. And that's what was so interesting, is that there weren't jump scares. There weren't like any of that stuff. But there were moments where I was like, had the blanket up on my face, like the tension is real and I don't know what to do. But yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, it's my number 2 out of his 10 movies. I have it ranked at number 2. I've only seen it once, like I said, but it has stuck with me. Really, really, really enjoyed it. I own it on Criterion Collection, so and I'm also one of those guys too that like I'm a dumb American who just likes American movies, and I rarely get into foreign cinema, which is a thing that like I need to get better at. I know, Nazar, I need to get better at it. But this is one of those movies where like it did not bother me at all that it was subtitled in Spanish. Didn't bother me one bit. I was locked in 100%. And I know that that's tough for some people. Isn't tough for me at all. So I know this is one of his movies that not a lot of people have seen. If you haven't seen it and you're watching, go check it out. It is pretty widely available, honestly. Like I got it on Criterion, but you can go to any Barnes and Noble or Amazon and get it.
It's online on YouTube. You can rent it for $3.99.
Oh, there you go. See, even better. And I bet if it's on YouTube to rent, it's probably on Amazon and all that stuff to rent. So highly recommend. It's really great. Speaking
I want to add that the acting is actually really great in this movie. The main characters are Federico Lupi and Marisa Paredes, and they are actually really, really solid as the head doctor and the director of the school. And also, I want to give nods to Eduardo Noriega, who is like my favorite bad guy from Mexican and Spanish films. He was also the bad guy in Tesis by Alejandro Amenábar, which is a great film. And he was actually the guy doing the Tom Cruise role in the original version of Vanilla Sky in Open Your Eyes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There you go. Well, I don't think, and you know what the sad thing is, and we'll get into the next movie. I'm looking right now. This movie wasn't nominated for any Oscars, including foreign film, which is pretty surprising because, I mean, it's such a great film. We'll get into his next movie, which did earn him some acclaim, and I think this is the film that, if he wasn't already, he was already famous in and outside of America, but I think this is the one that really broke through, and that's Pan's Labyrinth. And this movie was a movie that, even when it came out in what, 2006? So I was still in middle school when this came out. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. We're youngins. But it broke through. It was one of those foreign films that broke through that I had heard about and wanted to see and saw and absolutely loved. It's my number 3. I think the reason is it isn't as high as my other ones. Like, I think it's just I gravitate more towards the stories in Devil's Backbone in my number 1. But Pan's Labyrinth, like, the visually, if you want to talk about the like visual, like realistic practical effects style that he uses in his films, obviously it's incredible in the Hellboy movies. He does a really good job there, but it's never been better than in Pan's Labyrinth. Like, the visuals of this movie are out of control. And that's what I remember it most for. It has a great story, don't get me wrong, but its visuals and the gothic fairy tale like setup visual style of the film, it's just fascinating and awesome. And I know you watched it either today or last night, Nazario.
Last night.
Yeah, tell us about it. Is this your favorite?
Yes, this is definitely my number 1 Del Toro film. I am a sucker for the gothic feel of movies. That's why I'm a Tim Burton shill, even though he's not that like solid. But this movie, man, this is basically like an original version of fairy tale, European fairy tales. That the way they were written, the way they were told to children, it was like this. It was hardcore. There was actual consequences and death and gore. And everything got sanitized when it came to West and became the happy, merry stories that we see from the Disney films. But the original versions are always things like this. And this is basically the story of Ophelia, or like I call her, Princess Moana.
Oh, man.
And about how her mother remarried a very sadistic man out of necessity, again, during the Civil War of Spain, and became pregnant with his child, and they had to move into a forest to defend from the insurrection of the Red Soldiers that were still hanging around. And since everybody saw the new regime as kind of like a dictatorship, which it was, everybody was trying to rebel against it. And in the middle of this, she finds this labyrinth in the middle of the forest that is guarded by a faun. I never really understand why they call it Pan's Labyrinth. It's a faun, and I don't think they say his name. But basically, it's one of the thousands of entrances that the king of the underworld made to try to get his daughter back, which is Ophelia, because she is actually Princess Moana. And yes, this movie has a very, very dark feel, and the trial she has to go to prove that she can earn her way back into the kingdom of the underworld are not easy things, man. And he actually had to come face to face with one of the scariest things I've ever seen, played by excellently by Doug Jones, who's a master at this thing. That is the culture guy master. Even if it's Spanish, even if it's in English. Guillermo Del Toro puts him on makeup, and that guy just does magic. And I'm referring to this guy, the Pale Man, which is actually the second trial she faces.
Yeah.
This guy is one beautiful piece of work. It's like a great creation out of imagination. The way he actually doesn't have any eyes, yet he can see it because he has eyes in the palm of his hands. It's a brilliant thing. And
well, even if you don't, and that's the thing, is like you're saying, the story is really captivating and interesting and moving, but even if that escapes you, you never escape the imagery of this movie and the creatures that he comes up with. And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Doug Jones also does play the faun, right? Yeah, okay. That is correct. That's what IMDb says. So yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, there you go. Oh man. But yeah, that's honestly probably my favorite sequence in the movie is when she goes down and is with the fairies and the pale man or whatever. That whole sequence is and they're at the dinner, like it's like a dinner table basically. Like that whole sequence is excellent and spooky, but also just like, I don't know, this movie just puts a smile on my face, even though like it probably should disgust me, because we were actually talking, or you messaged into our group about this, about just the villain of this movie. Once again, a theme that we've discussed, the fact that the nice guys, or like who could be the nice people, are actually the villains, and the creatures in this movie. The creatures are actually a little more spooky than in Devil's Backbone, and a little more vile, but not all of them, but some of them. But what is his name?
I think we can actually get in the end. In the end, she actually has to make a choice. When they tell her what the price is for the third trial, and she chooses not to do it. And the test was that actually was the test. She had to deny to do the thing they were being asked, because they were not really trying to hurt her. They were just testing.
Yeah.
She had a pure soul. It's actually kind of beautiful, even if it's in a weird, twisted way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but the actual villain here, so it's pronounced Sergi Lopez Nazario?
Sergi Lopez.
Yeah, he's crazy. An incredible performance, but absolutely nuts in this movie. And I remember vividly seeing this for the first time, and there's a scene towards the beginning where he just beats on this guy, breaking his nose, and like you're just like, man, this guy is nuts. Maggie, you haven't really said a lot because you haven't seen it in a while, but what do you remember and like about the movie?
Yeah, no, what really sticks out to me is the villain. There's a scene sort of in the middle where he sort of starts to go look on the outside, how he really is on the inside, like Nazario mentioned. I do remember the end very, very clearly, because I was like, well, shit, that happened. Because of what happens with the third trial, and the sort of switch of her going back to the underworld, and that just sort of blew my mind a little bit. But I do very much enjoy the movie. It was probably one of the first foreign films that I watched, actually, because I really didn't start watching film until I started dating Tim, and it really is crazy good. Like, I don't even notice that it's not in a language that I don't speak, because of how captivating the story is, and that really sort of blew me away too.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jonathan Peck is in the chat. He's got some questions for the panel in a couple of minutes, whatever that means. Jonathan, you go ahead and put those questions ahead in there. While you're doing that, Jonathan, I want to bring up
a little one thing. Maribel Verdú is actually very good in this movie. She plays Mercedes, who's the woman who's actually working for the soldiers, but at the same time trying to help her brother that is actually in the opposing regime. She also appears in Alfonso Cuarón's Y Tu Mamá También, which is a beautiful coming-of-age movie that, if you haven't seen it, again, it's YouTube. I actually think it's pirated for free, complete on YouTube, so you can get it.
There you
go. For Robert Parker, bonus Mandragora appearance in this movie.
Who does?
Mandragora from like Harry Potter, the root that uses people. They actually have like a little mandrake root that they put in a bowl of milk to heal the mom, and it screams like a baby. Creepy as hell.
Oh, there you go. Fun stuff.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. So this movie, like I said, it kind of broke through. Not many foreign films like it. That's not true. A lot of foreign films break through to the American market, but this one I think did a lot of that. It has a very similar like track record at the Academy Awards that Roma did this last year, where it just like was nominated for a ton of Oscars. It won 3. It won for cinematography, art direction, and makeup. It was also nominated for screenplay, score and foreign language film. It didn't win
That's
foreign
surprising.
language film. I don't know what did. Nazario, do you know what won over it?
I actually don't remember.
I'm going to look it up right now. But the fact that just like, yeah, it did break through and it was nominated for all of these awards and won 2, I mean, just shows. I think that Del Toro probably should have been nominated for director. I don't. Was Shape of Water the first time he was nominated?
Oh, nominated.
I think it was. I'm not sure, honestly. Direct Oscars are not really a strong part of my.
Yeah, no. So
I can't imagine there was another one of his films that would have gotten enough acclaim because like Pacific Rim and Hellboy and Blade are all very like niche.
The Life of Others from Germany was the winner.
That's I just found too. So I've never heard of that film. So I
wonder if it had the Wait, did Roma win Best Foreign Film?
Yeah, Roma won Best Foreign Film.
I was gonna say maybe it had the Roma problem where like everyone was voting for it for other things because it was nominated for so many other categories and they forgot to vote for it in the foreign film category.
Yeah, but honestly, if you look at the best pictures, I think the best picture did win that year. It's The Departed, and that's like one of my favorite movies. But
we're not talking about that right now.
Babel, Letters to Iwo Jima, Little Miss Sunshine, The Queen, Pan's Labyrinth is better than like all those movies. So come on, guys. Anyway, we're still waiting on Jonathan Peck's questions, but we are going to move on to.
He has not been nominated for Best Director. He has been nominated for Best Original Screenplay twice and lost both times. This movie and Shape of
Water.
And which one was the other one?
Shape of Water.
Okay, yeah, okay. So speaking of Shape of Water, that's what we're going to get into. This is my personal favorite. I think, I don't know if this is your number 2. Okay, good. That makes me happy. And what about you? I mean, do you know where this would land?
I mean, I would put it somewhere in the top 3. I would probably put it, I don't know, man. It's a struggle.
I saw this movie
way too many times.
I've seen it many times. But I saw this movie in the theater, and actually, if you know me at all in this community, you know that I am a very, very big Star Wars fan. This movie was in a limited release, but it came to a theater near me the same weekend Last Jedi opened. And I drove 45 minutes to go see this in the theater. I could have waited and seen it at a theater 5 minutes. Yeah, I could have seen it at a theater 5 minutes away from me if I had just waited 3 or 4 weeks, but couldn't wait. Drove 45 minutes to see it, and I went to like a 11 a.m. show on a Monday, and everybody was seeing Star Wars. Everyone's in the Star Wars theater, and there were me and like 5 other people in Shape of Water, and I absolutely fell in love. I think that this is his most personal movie. I think that like he does a lot in this movie that he brings from other films, obviously. So like the creature work, and then Michael Shannon is basically just he's the villain. He's the guy who looks like a normal person but is actually the evil thing. I love all of the subplots in this movie. I love the characters in this movie. I love the score of this movie from Alexander Desplat. The score is so good. The whole thing, just I think as a whole, I love the most out of all of his movies. I just think it's fantastic. I know Maggie has a couple issues with it, which you can get into now, Maggie.
I have a couple issues?
I feel like you did when we saw it together in the theater.
Like I said, it's definitely grown on me. I think that I wasn't necessarily prepared for what the movie was. And you had seen it before me, and you know that when you see movies before me, it can make things kind of hard to watch because you just hype it up the entire time. And
yeah, that's fair.
That kind of brings it down sometimes. But I think upon rewatch, it definitely grew on me. I really don't think that I can say that it's better than Pan's Labyrinth, though. And I honestly kind of have a struggle saying it's better than Devil's Backbone. And I don't know if it's just because of – I'm not sure what it is. I think it's a bit long.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest complaints. And there are a lot of random subplots that aren't necessarily relevant to the main story. But I do really enjoy it still.
Yeah.
The creature work is amazing. The performances are great. The fact that Sally Hawkins never says a word, but yet conveys so much emotion is just crazy. I think that Richard Jenkins was fine. He was good, but people definitely overhyped his performance a little bit.
I don't know about that.
But again, the narration at the beginning, I really enjoyed. And like, I'm not a huge narration person, but like in those two movies in particular, I think that it's very meaningful. Yeah.
I think that it's the most, like we've talked a lot about his visuals. I think that from a visual standpoint, it's just the most striking. Like the way that he designs the city and then the lab that they work in and everything, I think is really, really interesting. And I know that like a lot of people make fun of the fact that it's a fish man and a lady shacking up. A friend of mine calls this movie Grinding Nemo. That's fine. You can call it whatever it is, but I think it's beautiful. Jonathan Peck does have something to say before we get to Nazario's thoughts. The great thing about Del Toro is he's a great mentor to upcoming filmmakers like Muschietti and J.A. Bayona, which is definitely true. He's produced a lot of stuff. He produced Mama for Andy Muschietti, gave him a big break, and now look at that. He's going to be directing The Flash, I'm pretty sure. And then J.A. Bayona with The Orphanage, The Impossible, Monster Calls, all really good movies. He had a bit of a misfire on Jurassic World, but that's it's still a fun movie, but it is what it is. But anyway, that's an absolutely good point, Jonathan, for sure. Nazario, your relationship with The Shape of Water. Let's hear about it.
Since they mentioned The Orphanage, that is another most watched Spanish language gothic horror film. It's really, really good. Yeah. And J.A. Bayona is really great. A Monster Calls is my favorite movie from him. Yeah, but we don't talk about Jurassic Park. Anyway, The Shape of Water it was for about 6 months my favorite film of 2017. Basically because we didn't get Phantom Thread till the middle of 2018. 2018. And now that became my favorite film of that year, so this is a close number 2. Actually, it's a very beautiful story. It's basically an adaptation of The Beauty and the Beast set in a different time under different conditions. Yes, the Beast has sex with the Beauty, but I mean that they just chose to show it this time. I don't know what the big deal is. It's like if you like The Beauty and the Beast, then why are you surprised?
Yeah.
Also, again, Doug Jones as the Amphibian Man. That guy is just. People tell he had a lot of practice in the Hellboy movies with Ape Sapien. I was like, it's a completely different thing. It may be water based, but it's a completely different way to act when you don't have, you cannot speak. Everything has to be through motion and physical movement and expressions. Michael Shannon is pretty great in this movie again as the guy who it's really the menace of the film that you maybe can tell but not really sure right away. And one of the unsung heroes of 2017 was Michael Stuhlbarg, who was in half the Best Picture nominees, including.
He was in this, The Post, and
he was in Call Me by Your Name.
Call Me by Your Name.
His best performance.
Yeah, that guy actually does a very good job in this movie. I really think Jenkins steals the show. I don't know what Mag is talking about.
Yeah, I think Jenkins is good. I've got nothing against his role. I think that Shannon is the better performance. I think that if out of the two of them, if one was going to get nominated, I thought it should have been Shannon. But that doesn't mean I didn't like Richard Jenkins' performance. I thought that there was a lot of layers to that character. And I think that it's a hilarious character, but even the fact that you also get those undertones of he's an old man who's just alone and all he has is this mute girl living next door that they're just two peas in a pod, and
he used to have a cat.
What's that?
He used to have a cat.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. That's a great scene too. But I love all the stuff with him going to the diner to get some pie or whatever. All those little things. I think just while they don't have maybe necessarily like Maggie said, like are necessary to the plot. They add so much to the characters without detracting from the movie. There are plenty of movies where you go off. An example for me is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the most recent Tarantino movie. There's a lot of moments that I just don't think need to be there. They're entertaining, but they do nothing other than just build the characters.
Mm-hmm.
The moments like that in this movie, I think, build the characters, and I can't imagine the movie without it. So, yeah, I really like Richard Jenkins. I don't know, man.
I don't dislike him. I'm just saying that I think that, and I like, there are parts of him that I like, but like you said, like I just think, and I get the point. I don't know. He was overhyped.
Yeah,
I
sure.
do think that this is probably out of his English-based and more commercial films, is the most personal he has made. I do believe there is something. There's a little extra thing he gets in the Spanish language ones.
I totally agree.
Especially the two we mentioned in this before this one. But out of the American-based ones, I definitely think this is the best one. It's my number 2 on my list. Sadly, I don't have my Amphibian Man yet because it was supposed to come out in July and it got delayed. I don't know why. Eventually, will come.
Eventually, you'll get it, and you'll have the complete set. Now, do you have an Abe Sapien?
Somewhere, but I didn't look for it.
That's funny.
I actually have like a big closet full of boxes. My kids calls it my laboratory because every time I come out, I come with new stuff, and he's like, oh. But yeah, I actually had to look a lot for this, so I do have one
somewhere deep in the laboratory. That's great. Yeah, I mean, do we agree that this is the one that he deserved to win Best Director and Best Picture for this? Like, are we we're happy about that?
Yeah.
I think he only has made one movie better than this, so definitely it was worth the award. And like I said, at the moment, even when we saw the Oscars, it was my favorite film of that year because the only one that I like better I haven't been able to see yet. Just like the Tarantino one, I haven't been able to see it yet because it releases here on August 22nd.
Yeah, you can see it soon. You can see it in a couple weeks. That's exciting. There you go. Yeah, no, I remember watching the Oscars that year, and when he won, I was just so happy because he puts in so much work into his films, and I think that that's the biggest similarity between all three of these is that you can just tell that he puts passion into it every single time, even on a complete, to me, misfire like Mimic. He puts the passion into it. I don't like Mimic at all. That's my favorite film of his. Hey, guess what?
It was really bad.
There's movies of his that I know you hate that I really like. So we can, and if we want to get into that, we totally can. I really like Crimson Peak. I know I'm definitely in the minority there.
I like Crimson Peak.
I don't hate any of his films. I think if you look, yes, it's my lowest ranked one, but it's 3 stars. I mean, I just found it kind of boring overall. It had the look. It had the feel, but it didn't have the substance.
Sure. I would agree with that. Yeah, I still really enjoy it. I mean, the Hellboy movies, I'm kind of met on. Every time I watch them, I kind of like them a little bit less. But Hellboy 2 is really fun.
I think they're both pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, I have liked both Hellboys, but they're not really on my usual repeat list. Yeah. I think he was a little more free with the second one, which it feels more like a Del Toro film. Like he had more to play with. But I think overall, structurally, Hellboy 1 is the better one. Pacific Rim is a particular thing because I really, really liked it the first time I watched it.
Same.
I also have a giant Gypsy Danger somewhere, like 20-inch Gypsy Danger, and a big-ass kaiju to fight with it. I don't know, when you start rewatching it, because it's pretty flimsy. It's more about the looks. And actually, the best thing in the whole movie is the intro where they explain where the kaijus came and how we started defending, and then we became accustomed to them and making toys and shit. That is actually very interesting concept. But the rest of the movie, it's very light. But I do have to give him credit because even though it's a light entertainment movie that you can actually kind of forget about, it still has his touch in there, because when you watch the sequel that doesn't have his input,
Yeah.
it's a lot worse.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, 100%.
He actually makes a difference. And I also would like to tell Maggie, you should really watch Blade 2, because it's the best Blade.
Yes.
And you can definitely feel Del Toro in that film.
Oh, 100%. Jonathan Peck is coming with one of his questions, I would assume. So what out of Del Toro's lost projects would you love to see? So, for example, he was originally going to direct The Hobbit. I don't know what Mountains of Madness with Tom Cruise and James Cameron is. I've never heard of that. I don't know if you have, Nazario, but I'll touch on the Hobbit thing because I'm a pretty big Middle-earth fan.
I have one that he didn't mention.
You have one? Okay, perfect. The Hobbit is my favorite book of all time. So when it was announced that Peter Jackson was going to produce it and Del Toro was going to come direct, that was a big deal. And if you know anything about the history of that, he didn't want to leave. But the movie was in limbo for a really long time, and he was brought on. And at the time, the rights were with New Line, and they were getting transferred from New Line to Warner Brothers. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and eventually he just had to say, look, I can either sit here for another 5 years and hope this happens, or I can go make Pacific Rim. And he chose to go make Pacific Rim, which who knows what would have happened if he had done The Hobbit. I don't think we would have seen 3 movies, that's for sure. I think he would have made 3 or 2 really great movies. But you can definitely still feel some of the Del Toro flavor in moments in The Hobbit. By the third one, you don't really anymore, but especially in the first one, you get a lot of it. And that's because literally, I think it's like, if the first Hobbit movie came out in 2012, he was on the project from like 2008 to like 2010. Like, he was on the project for a couple years, if not longer, to 3 years. So
I think he lived 2 years in New Zealand preparing for the movie.
He lived in there for 2 years? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So I definitely would have loved to see that. I don't know what the Tom Cruise, James Cameron thing is. I'm down for him to direct Tom Cruise with the James. That sounds interesting. I don't know what it is, but what is this one that you know about?
When they announced that they were going to make a Haunted Mansion film from Disney directed by Guillermo Del Toro,
I didn't know that was a thing.
It blew my mind. They announced it a couple of years back. Like, he was going to take the reins, because obviously the original one they did didn't work at all.
No.
That's horrible. And as a Disney fan, I really love the parks and I love the history of the rides. And the Haunted Mansion has always been my favorite ride from Magic Kingdom and Disneyland. And to figure, it seems like a match made in heaven. And I honestly just don't know what happened. They announced it. They had a logo with the HM, and he came out. He was at Comic-Con and he started talking about the project, and then years passed and nothing came out of it. And everybody just seemed to have moved on. I don't think it got officially canceled either. It didn't happen.
I heard that there's and I could be wrong, but I believe there's a Haunted Mansion series coming to Disney Plus.
Maybe, I don't know if it changed into that. I will have to look about it, but originally it was supposed to be a movie, but it's one of those things that you hear and you're like, and then
good.
It's like I remember vividly around 2002 or 2003, they announced at the same time that the director of Remember the Titans was going to do Batman Beyond, and Darren Aronofsky was going to do Batman Year One. And I was like, yes! Nothing happened.
Are we excited for him to do Pinocchio for Netflix? That's his next thing on IMDb, a stop-action version of Pinocchio.
Nazario looks like he has thoughts.
No, actually, Pinocchio is one of my favorite stories. Peter Pan, Pinocchio are 2 of my favorite children's stories. Pinocchio from Disney is one of my favorite films. It's in my top 100. It's very high on my Disney list. I even kind of don't mind the Roberto Benigni one that everybody hates, because yes, he was a 40-year-old man pretending to be a kid puppet.
Oh boy.
So Pinocchio overall always kind of works for me. I would be interested to see what Del Toro can do to this story, because again, I love children's stories that are not sanitized and are a little more like there's some danger to them, that they can actually have risk. Like in the 80s, they were the kings of this. They put children in danger like this, and it always felt real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see a very interesting take on Pinocchio with the monster scenes in particular, or the Pleasure Island scenes with a creepy donkey man creature.
Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It could work.
he could do some crazy stuff with that, like, for sure.
Mhm.
Jonathan Peck actually did bring up a point that I was about to say. His next film is actually Nightmare Alley. And yeah, it's okay. Way to go. The synopsis is a corrupt con man teams up with a female psychiatrist to trick people into giving them money. A remake of the 1947 film.
Sorry.
I've never seen that film, but the cast is Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Rooney Mara, Michael Shannon, Richard Jenkins, Ron Perlman, Willem Dafoe, and Mark Pavanelli. So,
Sign me up.
hey, that could be good.
It's a good cast. Good cast.
And according to Jonathan, it's starting production this fall. Don't know how much I trust you, Jonathan, but I'm trusting you enough. And now going full circle here, are we excited to see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark? Are you getting it, Nazario, by you?
Let me quickly check. I haven't seen very many advertisements for it, but I can tell you really quick.
Well, it's a horror film, and it looks fun.
Yeah. Actually, we actually get a lot of horror very quickly. Yep. We are getting it on the 15th of August.
So next week.
Yep, a week after us. So that makes sense.
It's not bad. The same day as 47 Meters Down, the sequel.
Oof. Ugh.
Yeah, I
God.
mean, I think it.
Oh, and Crawl. Damn, it's all scary movies that weekend.
Wait, you're just
Crawl.
Crawl is great. Go see it.
Focus.
I'm gonna go watch Crawl first because that trailer was amazing.
Crawl is awesome. Anyway, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. He produced it. Looks fun.
Yeah, we'll see on how, like, at first, the first couple trailers, I didn't realize that there's going to be, like, a through story, so that there's actually going to be a plot. So I'm excited for that. I always like when there's a plot. We'll see how much it actually feels like a Del Toro movie, like how much he really stepped in as a producer. I imagine he probably didn't. I mean, I don't know what kind of producer he is, but...
well, I mean, if you look at
why
like,
are you laughing at me? What do you know about him as a producer?
No, I'm just saying that most because I'm laughing because most people just say that they say they're the producer and they just put their name in, cash the check, and move on.
Well,
It's
right.
like-
So I don't know.
Yeah.
well, and this director.
I mean, Tim Burton produced Batman Forever.
Right.
Oh yeah, okay. There's this director is Andre Ovredal. I don't know if you've heard of him, Nazario, but I would imagine he did The Autopsy of Jane Doe,
I don't know.
which was a movie that came out a couple years ago. And yeah, this is his next movie. After that, he also did a movie called Troll Hunter. So
Ooh. I think I've seen that.
Troll Hunter sounds familiar, not gonna lie.
2010 Troll Hunter.
I think I've seen that one. I
But-
don't remember hating it.
But yeah, this Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's a PG-13 horror film.
That'll be interesting.
Ooh,
I don't know about that, but the trailers have actually been pretty good. And it looks like they're using a lot of practical
It
effects.
does.
So if they're going that route, I'm 100% on board for seeing something like that, even because he does have a pretty good track record as a producer. Mama, I actually really
Mama's
enjoyed.
good.
Nazario said it earlier, The Orphanage.
I like that a lot. And most, I like The Orphanage very, very much. I think that's my favorite of the ones you mentioned. Mama, I think it was okay for like, I think I went like Wednesdays. We had half price Wednesdays. I don't know if you get those.
We have
Like,
Tuesdays. Yeah, here. Yeah.
We got 2 days because Wednesdays is the day before they change the movies here because we have the new ones on Thursdays, not Fridays. So usually Wednesdays, people are just like picking up the ones that are about to leave and they put them half price to fill the theater. I went to watch it like that, and it was fine for that, but I don't think I would have been happy if I paid full price for it.
Sure, that's fair. I could understand that. He also did that. He produced that movie. Is it Don't Be Afraid of the Dark or something like that?
Isn't that a TV show?
I think it was. I think it was made into a movie as well. I'm gonna look it up right now. I believe it was Don't Be Afraid. Yeah, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. It's got Katie Holmes, Guy Pearce, and yep, Guillermo Del Toro presents Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. It was directed by Troy Nixie, and Del Toro wrote the screenplay. So there you go.
Oh,
Did he write Scary Stories, or he's literally just producing it?
That's a great question. That is a great question that I'm going to look up right now.
Because that would make a difference. Like I could see that.
He wrote the screenplay for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. He is one of the. Oh, okay. There's 3 screenplays. There's Dan Hagerman, Kevin Hageman, and Del Toro. So he,
in his filmography, he's credited for the story, which I guess kind of makes sense. I actually like that genre where movies like have like a through line, but are like an anthology block. There's one in the 90s that I really like called After Midnight, and then there's Trick or Treat is a post 2000 one that is actually pretty cool with Lil Sam.
Yeah, Trick or Treat is really fun, and that was I think not Mike Flanagan. Who directed that movie? It was the same guy who did Krampus and the new Godzilla movie, whose name I cannot think of. Mike Dougherty, that's his name. He did Trick or Treat. But anyway, we're getting way off subject, and that's the end of the show. We talked for an hour about Del Toro. It was really fun. If you haven't seen these movies, if you haven't seen Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, Shape of Water, see them, especially Devil's Backbone. I feel like that one gets missed a lot. A lot of people don't even know what it is. I didn't even know what it was until I started researching. So please go check it out. Nazario, thanks for joining us. Where can people find you on the internet?
Usually around all these trivia leagues. I think there's like 3 or 4 right now. You can actually look for me by my name, Nazario Montenegro, in Facebook and Instagram. You will get weird things in Spanish, a lot of pictures about toys, but it will be fun. And don't listen to Tim. Mimic is pretty good. Go watch that.
Yeah, I can't recommend that you go do that. But Maggie, where can the people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Letterboxd, and the Twitter's at May24Maggie, MAE24MAGGIE. I'm also in Multiplex. We have a match coming up, Tim. This week.
Oh, yeah, we do. Holy shit. That is this week.
The good people get to see.
I believe that's tomorrow, sometime before Your List Sucks. So as Maggie kind of alluded to, I am around here at Multiplex, at Tim Loves Movies. If you want to see my review for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, that will be up sometime next week. I'm actually going to be seeing it at some point this weekend, surprisingly, with some people of Multiplex, more than likely. So that'll be a really, really fun time.
Other than me.
Other than Maggie. Yes. There's going to be some people visiting, and so we might go see that. But yeah, I'm around here helping Kaleb Koho and Cain McMillan run Fandom Fights, and doing all of the random trivia things. But like this video, share this video around with your people. And also be sure to like all of the other stuff we're putting out. So Cody Newberry's Your List Sucks every Wednesday. Be sure to watch that and like it and subscribe and share that as well. All of the other stuff, Warzone, Nerdgasm, all that stuff. Like it all. Hey, back off. Don't do that. But be sure to like all the stuff we're doing here. We're putting out a lot of content for you all the time. So be sure to enjoy that stuff. So anyway, for Maggie and for Nazario and for me, this has been Multiplex Loves Movies. And until next time, see you later, guys.